coming up.
Have God and his son Jesus been given a bad rap with these far left people? They present him as weak. They present him as a social justice person. They present him as accepting everything that's wrong rather than who he really is. And as a Catholic person, are you happy with that?
Well, like it was Jesus who preached the Sermon on the Mount. It talked about loving your enemies. It was Jesus who gave the Beatitudes, including blessed are the poor, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the peacemakers. Well, yeah, I can follow that, Jesus.
But Jesus was never and is not for the sin that human being lives in their fallen state. Do you believe human beings are in a fallen state?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so is it true that Jesus came that human beings may overcome that fallen state and not accept it and promote it as a norm?
Those on the right want to put the emphasis on the fallen in sin. Those of us on the left want to put the emphasis on transformed by grace.
But you're not transforming if you're accepting the abnorm, the sin, as a norm. Professor Sheila Briggs, Associate Professor of Religion and Gender Studies at USC. Thank you so much for coming here today. What is the purpose of Women's History Month?
Women's History Month. One of the big problems that any group has that in some way has been oppressed is they lose contact to their history. And every group needs to learn from their history, find resources in their history, and also warnings in their history. So it's about making people aware of women's past, and it's also a chance to reflect on that past and what it can teach us for what we need to do today.
Should we have a Men History Month so men can learn about their past as well?
I think what we need are history months for persons who, as I say, have tended not to be part of history. When Women's History Month and Black History Month were created back in the 70s, that at that time, basically what history was the history of white men. And the idea was to get away from that limitation and include other people's history. So yes, we need the history of everybody, but to get there, you need things like Black History Month and Women's History Month.
Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What is gender studies?
So gender is something that it's a key part of a person's identity, and it's not something, it's the same as in race, it's not something you choose. It's something that you are faced with. It's changeable, but it's a social identity.
But we only have
individuals in society have to negotiate that.
We only have two genders, and that male and female, right? And so you teach about those two things, male versus female, or male and female. Am I right about that?
Yes.
There's no other gender, right?
Well, gender is actually a rather flexible thing. No, not our Western culture is a culture like you get a form, it says male, it says female,
Right.
you tick one. But there are some cultures which actually do have more than one gender.
But we don't have that here.
We don't have that here.
And so you're just teaching about male and female.
Well, I don't teach. I'm teaching about Christianity. I'm teaching about the Western world.
Right. I wanted to ask you about the nasty women rally they had in Washington, D.C. and around the country. Were you a part of any of that?
I went to the women's rally here in L.A.
Oh, you did? The women there was really, really dirty. You had Madonna dreaming about blowing up the White House. You had women wearing these pink hats.
I'd have loved to have had one, but I didn't have time to make one.
And they're supposed to represent the vagina or something, right? Those hats. Did you want to wear a vagina hat on your head?
There's various stories about that. I think that the hats haven't really.
They
got
said
anything to do with
vagina.
it.
I asked.
It's from Pussy Riot. I
Right.
think that's. But it's.
Would you have wanted to wear a pussy hat on your head?
If I'd have been able to get one, because I think it was a way of saying, look, we women are here. We are not going to allow our reproductive rights to be taken away. That was one of the major focuses.
But the way normal people saw that, they saw these women as being men haters, family hating, abortion, LGBT, homosexual kind of women. And they displayed themselves in a way where a normal man would never consider marrying them or even associating with them because they were so gross in those rallies.
Look, I was on the streets that day, and there were 750,000 folk here in LA on the streets.
Right.
It was amazing, and these were all sorts of people. I mean,
I know, but it was dirty people.
No,
you had Black Lives Matter. You had the radical homosexuals. You had the
So
LGBT.
you think Black Lives Matter is a nasty thing?
Yes, they are worse than the KKK.
You think that Black Lives Matter? So you don't think that Black Lives Matter?
I think they need to be gotten rid of. They are worse than the KKK. If we're going to tolerate Black Lives Matter.
You think that the Black Lives Matter is worse than the KKK?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Because it's a very radical, agitative, evil organization that is built of radical black lesbians and
but it's
radical
particularly about protecting
black
young black men.
No, they never went into the black areas at all.
Well,
black on black crime out of control, and the only thing they did was
you sound like look, black on black crime. This idea that black on black crime is out of control. Yes, black communities have problems, but actually, crime is down in the United States. If anywhere where crime
you need
is
to send that
rising,
notice to Chicago.
Is in white communities.
Just the other day, there were young black males who raped a young 14-year-old black girl. I just did a story on that. And the black on black crime in Chicago through the roof. And you never saw Black Lives Matter marching in those areas, demanding that the police go in there and clean up the mess. Obama did nothing about it. And so it's just out of control. They're pretending that it's not, but the reality that it is. So that's why one of the reasons I say that Black Lives Matter is worse than the KKK, because they're encouraging hatred rather than love. What did you
there are lots of folk involved in Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a movement that has come out of the black community, but it's made alliances with lots of groups. If you actually see black...
Well, all evil groups, though, not with good
people.
Well,
the thing is, you say they're not with good people, but these are the ordinary folks of America and California. These are people of all ages, all races, all genders, all classes. It's about people coming together to build something better.
But would ordinary people chant in a rally, what do we want? Dead cops, when do we want it now? Pigs in the blanket, fry them like bacon, and right after that, some folks go out and start killing cops?
Look.
Would ordinary people do that?
Black Lives Matter
is
not about doing...
Would ordinary people do that?
In any political movement, you're always going to have the loonies around.
No, these were the heads of it.
But these are not the people who are the heads of it.
No, I've interviewed them. Take my word, it was. So you would have worn, had you had a pussy hat, you would have worn it in public at the Dirty Women rally.
You call it dead, but there were all sorts of folks.
But they're all dirty.
They weren't all dirty. Some of the people
You're not
I
telling
saw
me
there,
yes. You don't look like a lady.
There were nuns in habits. There was a local Catholic parish that sent its group to this march, not to the other. Some people from that. There were all sorts of people.
But dirty people. But
But you
tell
call-
me
you
yes
call-
or no,
but,
you would have worn a pussy hat in public.
I would have worn a pussy hat in public.
You would, you're a
For
professor.
the march. For the march. I'm not going to necessarily
What
wear
point would you have wanted to make with that hat?
It was a just as any symbol. When you go on a march, it's a way of symbolizing that you are part of the march and part of
I
that
know, but
agenda.
you're a Christian and you teach Christianity.
And I just think-
Christianity is a noble religion. It's like the light of the world, the salt of the earth. And wearing a pussy hat is not the light of the world.
Christianity is also about justice, fundamentally about justice. Look, it may be that I'm a Roman Catholic.
Right. That's
So
why I would
believe
expect more from you.
I believe, yeah, but Roman Catholics, we don't all agree on the same things. But the one thing that joins most Roman Catholics together is our commitment to social justice, to preserving the planet, and to providing justice for
Well, that's
all.
new. Roman Catholics haven't always been that way.
No, precisely.
They have allowed the pussy hat women to get in there and mess it up. Do you think Pope Francis would wear a pussy hat?
No, I don't think
I
that
didn't
Pope
think
Francis
so.
would put a pussy hat.
Have God and his son Jesus been given a bad rap with these far left people? They present him as weak. They present him as a social justice person. They present him as accepting everything that's wrong rather than who he really is. And as a Catholic person, are you happy with that?
Well, like it was Jesus who preached the Sermon on the Mount and talked about loving your enemies. It was Jesus who gave the Beatitudes, including blessed are the poor, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the peacemakers. Well, yeah, I can follow that, Jesus.
But Jesus would never and is not for the sin that human being lives in their fallen state. Do you believe human beings are in a fallen state?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so is it true that Jesus came that human beings may overcome that fallen state and not accept it and promote it as a norm?
Those on the right want to put the emphasis on the fallen in sin. Those of us on the left want to put the emphasis on transformed by grace.
But you're not transforming if you're accepting the abnorm, the sin, as a norm. I don't hear, even at the rally, the women rally, I didn't hear them repudiating with love the radical homosexuals, the LGBT people, Madonna, who was as confused as a doorknob. Some other people were saying crazy things. I didn't hear anyone repudiating those people. They were accepting them in the fallen state rather than showing them how to overcome it. And Jesus would never agree with that.
Well,
Wouldn't you agree?
I hate to point this out to you, but Jesus had nothing to say about what we today call homosexuality.
Well, I just meant by everything that was there, or the fallen state, period, not just homosexuality.
But everybody.
But he did have something to say about it. He said
state.
it was an offense. God hate that kind of stuff.
Well,
and so he did talk about it. He didn't, he doesn't like sin anyway, but he definitely didn't like that.
Yeah, but for Jesus, and I think this is one of the huge problems that we have in the modern West, is that we see sin primarily in sexual terms, whereas actually, sexually, that isn't where people sin. Where people sin is in the economic realm, in the political realm. And that's where we need to be talking about sin.
What is sin?
Sin is a turning away from God towards oneself. And when that happens, when a person turns away from God and turns to themselves, doesn't matter if you're a Christian. Being a Christian isn't going to protect you from this unless you look carefully within yourself. When you turn away from God into yourself, as a Christian, you will become self-righteous. you will actually see sin in others rather in yourself. So one of the ways which I explain many problems, particularly say in the right-wing Christianity is...
The what?
Right-wing Christianity.
Right wing?
Yeah, is that when you turn away from God, it will eventually lead to you turning away from your neighbor, because you will see yourself as self-righteous. You will create your own Jesus, your own Christianity, and judge and condemn other people by that standard.
So then you would agree with me then on the left, because let's say that, I don't know what you said is right about the right, but the left, you would agree that they have already turned away from the true God, and their God is Satan, their father. Because they live
Look,
every
everybody,
kind,
look,
right? Their father's the devil, right?
Correct political belief is never going to,
But I'm asking you, the ones on the left, is Satan their father?
Look, no.
Satan's not their father?
Satan's not their
Well, how are
father.
they able to be so mean and nasty and do all these weird things and wear pussy hats on your head and want to blow up the White House and so radical if the true God is their God? Because there's no love in their actions at all.
Well, I don't
And you
think
would
there's
agree
all
to that, right?
much love when you call people nasty people. Look,
But they call themselves dirty people.
when remember that the whole phrase "nasty woman," it's taken on like this irony there. Remember there was the Trump debate where
Well,
he turned to
he called Hillary
and said "nasty woman,"
Yeah.
and then people just took it up to ironize. It's an irony. It's not to say we are actually nasty women. It's to sort of say
But they
we
looked
identify.
pretty nasty and they were acting nasty, wearing those hats and the things they
You
were saying.
really are obsessed with those hats, which would...
Because I thought it was such a disgrace. I would have never allowed any woman in my life to do that. I would not have allowed that because it showed who those people really are, and they're not the type of women that you want to make a family with.